Everyone believes retirement just clears your calendar, but within months, even those closest to you begin sharing less, and the steady stream of work conversations fades. Longitudinal data reveals contact with ex-coworkers briefly rises, then drops, leaving many with the quiet sense of standing just outside the flow of daily life. If this shift isn't simple isolation, what is really happening? And how far does this subtle social drift reach? The idea that retirement only changes what you do with your time is deeply rooted, but the evidence tells a different story. Conversations that once flowed easily about meetings, deadlines, or the latest workplace surprise begin to thin out. The first weeks after leaving work often bring a flurry of messages and invitations as from former colleagues, as if the old rhythm might continue. Yet large-scale studies tracking thousands of retirees show a clear pattern. Contact with ex-coworkers rises briefly, then falls away. According to data from the SHARE project, this bump-then-drop is nearly universal, regardless of profession or background. Researchers have mapped this shift across Europe and North America. In the months right after retirement, about 60% of people report increased outreach from former colleagues, sometimes even more frequent than before. But within a year, that number drops sharply, and only a third maintain regular contact. The decline isn't sudden or dramatic. It's a gentle ebb, like a tide receding. The workplace, once a daily anchor, fades into the background. This isn't just about fewer emails or phone calls. The content of conversations changes too. Where talk once centered on shared projects or inside jokes, it gradually pivots to family, health, or hobbies. Over time, the easy shorthand of shared workdays disappears. Studies have found that women tend to sustain these ties longer, often keeping up with former coworkers through personal updates. For men, the drop-off is steeper, with workplace friendships giving way to new connections or simply falling silent. No one sets out to exclude. The shift happens quietly, shaped by diverging daily routines and the simple fact that shared experiences are no longer renewed. Longitudinal data points to a broader truth. The social world doesn't vanish, but its shape changes. The myth that retirement leaves relationships untouched begins to unravel, not through any dramatic break, but through the slow, almost invisible drift of everyday conversation. Marge sits at her kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug, the morning sun catching the edge of her glasses. The phone rests nearby, silent. For decades, her days began with a steady stream of messages, reminders about meetings, notes about deadlines, quick jokes from colleagues. Now, those threads have thinned, each day a little quieter than the last. She still hears from a few people at the office. Once a week, maybe, someone calls to check in, to ask how she's settling into retirement. The conversations drift quickly. Where they once lingered on the details of a tricky project or the latest office rumor, now the talk settles on family news, health updates, or the weather. Marge finds herself listening more than sharing. When she mentions something from her old job, the response is polite but brief. The shorthand of shared experience has faded, replaced by pauses and gentle changes of subject. Researchers have found that this pattern is common, especially among women. Before retirement, women like Marge often maintain larger social networks than men, weaving together friends from work, family, and the neighborhood. After retirement, those networks don't vanish, but the texture changes. The workplace fades into the background, and conversations lose their easy rhythm. For men, the change is often starker. Networks shrink, and new ties must be built from scratch. But even for women, the shift is noticeable. The calls come less often, the updates grow shorter, and the sense of being in the loop quietly slips away. Marge doesn't feel excluded exactly. It's more like standing just outside a circle, close enough to hear the laughter, but not quite part of the story anymore. She fills her days with new routines, walking the dog, tending her garden, volunteering at the library. Still, she notices the difference. The old work chatter, once as familiar as her morning coffee, now feels distant, like a radio playing in another room. The drift isn't sudden or sharp. It's a gentle, almost invisible current. Life continues, but the shape of belonging shifts. Marge's story is quiet, but it echoes the experience of many who retire. Not a loss, but a subtle movement toward the edges of other people's daily lives. Tom stands at the edge of a small park, watching the late afternoon crowd filter past. For years, his Thursday evenings followed the same pattern. A quick text from a coworker, a shared table at the corner cafe, easy laughter over coffee before everyone scattered home. Now the messages arrive less often, and when they do, the timing feels off. A group chat lights up at 6:30, inviting him to a last-minute dinner. But by then, Tom is already home, halfway through his meal. Sometimes he replies, but the thread has moved on, swept up in the momentum of workday routines that no longer fit his own. The change isn't about anyone forgetting him. It's a matter of schedules quietly drifting apart. Most of Tom's old friends still work standard hours, commutes in the morning, meetings through the day, social time packed into evenings. Tom's days stretch differently now. He wakes without an alarm, handles errands mid-morning, fills afternoons with volunteer shifts or a walk around the neighborhood. By the time his friends are just winding down from work, Tom's energy is fading, his mind already turning toward tomorrow. Research on daily rhythms shows how these mismatches close invisible windows for invitations. The overlap that once made spontaneous plans possible, lunch breaks, after-work gatherings, shrinks. For retirees like Tom, the most social hours of the day often fall when others are still at their desks. After sunset, the gap widens further. Evening invites, once routine, now feel like interruptions instead of opportunities. Over time, Tom notices the pattern. He's present, but slightly outside the flow, watching as the shared tempo of daily life moves on without him. Carla's afternoons are spent in a classroom with second graders, helping them sound out new words. She retired from teaching last year, but the school down the street always needs volunteers. At first, her phone buzzed with messages from old colleagues, funny stories about staff meetings, updates on lesson plans, the occasional meme about grading papers. Now, most days, the phone stays silent until evening. When messages do arrive, they're often late, after the school day has ended and Carla is already home, her mind shifting to dinner or tomorrow's plans. She notices the timing never quite lines up. Invitations for impromptu gatherings come at hours that no longer fit her routine. The rhythm that once connected her to her peers now moves on a different beat. Dr. Elaine Rivera, a gerontologist who studies social change in later life, describes this as a natural resynchronization. She explains that after retirement, people don't drift apart because of hurt feelings or neglect. Instead, daily schedules quietly slide out of sync. It's like two trains running on parallel tracks, she says. You can wave from the window, but you're not stopping at the same stations anymore. This isn't just a matter of missed invitations. Studies show that as workplace groups fade, retirees often build new connections closer to home. Contact with neighbors and friends tends to rise, filling some of the gaps left by former colleagues. But the stakes are real. Research links every lost group membership after retirement with about a 10% drop in quality of life scores, measured over several years. The loss isn't always dramatic, but it's measurable, a quiet shift that shapes daily contentment. For Carla, the change is subtle but steady as her social lane veers gently away from the one she knew. Today, over 10,000 Americans retire every day, each stepping into a new social landscape shaped by shifting rhythms, not isolation. Belonging doesn't vanish, it quietly changes form. The measure of connection now lies in noticing where we're needed, not just where we're missed. Thanks for watching.